Hi there, Pepper Plant Girl here. Today I'm out in my garden and I'm going to be planting up some of my pepper plants. I've been working to get this space ready for my pepper plants, and I'm going to be planting in these large pots that I acquired several years ago. Hope you can hear me over all the birds. So you may have recalled me showing these pots in a few videos if you're a regular subscriber. And if you're not, hit that subscribe button and then you'll know all about them. But they're just old like boulevard planters that my city had that they auctioned off, and they're quite large pots. I think they're like 2.5 feet, what's that, like about 75 centimeters across and tall. And I've had them in various positions in my yard over the years, but one of their main positions is where I've now put my greenhouse. So I've had to kind of revamp things a little bit. So I've moved my old fabric planter beds that I've had here for years. They just don't fit in this space the same way anymore. And I've moved the big pots into their place. I'm going to be using those for my peppers and also some of my squash this year. But today we're going to focus on the peppers. So right here is my jalapeno peppers. This is Monet and mild. So this is two jalapenos here, and I'm quite excited to give them a try. And they're going to be going into this pot here. Oh, and they're growing peppers. And I can see that when I pulled them out of the cage, I knocked a pepper off already. They've been producing. I started these quite a while back. I'll put it on the screen. I started slowly working on getting these planted yesterday and organized how I wanted to do it. And I'll give you a quick look at what I did yesterday and what my setup is going along here. And then we'll get these jalapenos planted. For those of you that have been missing my garden helper, there he is. He decided to come out and join me today. So I think this gives you probably the best view of what I'm doing here. I've done kind of the same setup on either side of the front of the greenhouse. And these are the peppers that I planted yesterday. There's my sugar rush peach and my Hungarian hot wax in this pot here. I have 3 plants of each, and I've just put a tall tomato type cage trellis. It's in a square in the center of the pot, and there's nothing actually planted in the center, but that'll just give me something that I can train the plants to give them protection, because they'll be out pretty exposed to wind here. I haven't actually gotten this one tied up yet, but I should do that. So what I did is I put some compost in the center of the trellis. I dug out a hole and filled it with compost, and that'll just add a little bit of amendments and good nutrition into the soil here where I'm planting my peppers. And so that's the same thing I'm going to be doing with my jalapeno peppers here, and then I'll be planting my peppers. Now, a lot of times I'll plant my peppers 2 to a hole, and this time I just had one. They were in individual pots, and I just put one around in each spot. They're pretty close together. The reason I like to plant them 2 together is to get them really closely spaced, and then they kind of help to shade the peppers so they don't get sunburned. They help to protect them and give them extra support if they, so they're not blowing around in the winds and things. And they just seem to do well that way. I think there's extra pollination with the flowers and that, so when they're so close together like that, they kind of brush against each other. I don't know, I've never done a super side-by-side comparison on if one way is better than the other, but it certainly doesn't seem to stunt them or hurt them. From everything I've read, peppers like to have a close, fairly tight root space, and so I think planting them together just helps to give them that as well. Some of my peppers this year will be planted like that, because with the single pepper, and some will be planted with 2 in each hole, and that's just how I had planted them to begin with when I started these in the house. So you can see the jalapenos here are planted 2 plants in most of these spots, and I left them growing that way, and you can see it hasn't stunted them at all. Like, there's 2 plants here. You see how big and healthy, nice looking they are. There's a single plant here, 2 plants here, a single plant here, 2 plants, 2 plants. So it doesn't seem to have really made a huge difference in their growth rate or their production. This one plant has already started growing peppers on it, but the other single hasn't. So I don't think that's really affected anything that way. They're all nice and healthy. So you can choose for yourself if you want to plant them really close together or give them more spacing, but Maybe do some experiments, or if you have in the past, put it down below. Have you tried this? What do you think? But so when they're planted, however they come out of the container here, that's just how I'm going to plant them. So the first thing I need to do is, I've already set my trellises in all of these. I set those up yesterday before it started to rain. It's been showering off and on for days here, so I'm just popping out when I can and getting a few things done. You'll notice the clouds are going to be coming and going as the sun and the rain clouds fight for position here. But, so I came out, got the trellises set. Now I'm just going to dig out a little space in the center, put in a bunch of compost. This is just my own homemade compost that I'm emptying out of my bin. I haven't sifted it or done anything to it, so there's going to be some rougher chunks, and that's fine. It'll all break down, and it's just all going to add good nutrition to the soil here. So I'm just going to pull back the soil that's in the center here. This is nice, good, loamy, loose soil that I have here in these pots. And all I'm doing here is just adding this compost to just add some nutrition in, where the roots will be able to get at it as it, makes its way into the soil. Some of these bigger chunks will break down more. So we'll just kind of pack that down in the center, cover it all over. Now you could just work in a nice all-purpose fertilizer or something with nitrogen to get the roots going if you wanted to go that route. This is just what I'm doing for this year, and that's, I never do things exactly the same. That would be boring, right? I find as long as you're giving good nutrition and good water into your plants, giving them the conditions they need, they'll grow well for you. So I'm just going to dig some holes down. I think I'll start over here. Put one plant down here, because I have 3 spaces to go. So I'll put one of the doubles on this side here. See the nice roots that they have growing there. They're ready to get planted. So that's one of my doubles. I'm going to put it kind of in the center here. Just cover it up nicely. And I go up the stem a little bit, and that's fine. It doesn't hurt peppers. And when they're such tall plants, I think it helps to give them a little bit of stability. And then I'll just put 2 holes along this side. So put that one there. You could take these lower leaves off so they're not touching the soil. I'll put this one over here. Keep our tag out so we know what we're looking at here. And then I'll just cover back over them. And I'm just going to go around and do the other 2. These were what did I say they were? The jalapeno mild. It's one of my favorite ones, not too much heat. Good for working into family recipes. And now I have the Monet, which has a little bit more heat. So I'm just going to put the Monet over 2 on this side, 1 on this side, and get those planted up. There's 2 different ways that you could trellis these to tie them up to keep them from flailing around in the winds and getting broken and damaged. One is to do your kind of traditional, just take your ties and just tie them to the trellis. Now when you're doing a tie like this, I like to take it, and if this is the trellis, my finger's the trellis, you're going to take it, wrap it around the trellis, and put a twist in it, and then say that's the plant right there, put it around the plant, and then wrap it around the plant. And that gives more movement and helps it to not be, the plant to not be just smashed against the stake or trellis that you're sticking it to, and helps to give it a little bit more freedom of movement that way. So that's what I'm going to do. Now this has broken, this has gone into 2 stems. Sometimes I pinch my pepper, sometimes I don't. I really don't think it makes a huge amount of difference. I'm going to go up one more, so go above this, and then just hook it on. So you could just trellis them that way, just holding them to the stake and tie off each individual plant. Or with something like this, you could loosely take some twine or string and just wrap a piece around one of these bars, kind of do a circle around, wrapping once in a while around a bar, and just go around the outside, just loosely holding the plants in, and then go around a bar and keep going up and working your way up as they grow. And that's probably what I'm gonna do. So I need to go in, I hope I have some twine. I couldn't find any garden twine out here, so I'm hoping to have some inside. I'm gonna grab it and I'll show you what that looks like as long as I can find it. So here I grabbed some scissors and some twine. This is just jute, like garden twine. And undo this here because I don't need this. So all I would do with this is just tie one end off to the trellis. And then I'm just going to go around the plants very loosely. I started a little bit high. These plants aren't quite that tall, but just go really loose around. And then I'll just take it and wrap it around one of the posts just to keep it in place here. Go around the next set of plants and back to where I started. Don't want to catch that pepper in there just a minute. Go behind this pepper so I can do another loose kind of tie off to the post here. And then I'll just go up to the next rung, and I would just go around again. And you want to leave it a little bit loose. So again, you don't have the plants pushing and smashing right against the bars, which can damage them. But so you can do the whole thing, wire it all, string it all up, and then as the plants grow, you can just make sure they're tucked in behind, and that just protects them from the wind, so they have some movement, which will help strengthen their stems and make them better, stronger plants, but they're not going to be broken right off in strong winds and damaged as badly this way when they just have a little bit of support. And the advantage to using the string on the trellis instead of tying individual plants is just that it's just less tedious. It's just easier to just have it there and work them in as they grow, and not have to be tying off and finding ties for all these little stems as you go along. So that's my plan for these plants here. As I go, I'll be just trellising, stringing up the trellis so that I can be tucking the plants in as they grow and trellising them that way. And this is going to be a lot easier to remove than going through and getting all the ties off at the end of the season too. So it's just, to me, it just makes it easier. You know, I don't want to make more work for myself in the garden than I have to. So that's what I'm going to be doing to help keep these in place, but also give them some movement as well. And I still have several more pots of peppers. I have 4 more pots to go. I think one of them is going to have my cherry tomatoes in it. So I have this one right here that's empty, and then I have 3 more on the other side. So I'll be working on that between the rains here. The sun's out now, it's beautiful, but unfortunately I have somewhere I need to be, so I'm going to be heading out right away. I'll finish the rest another time. But I thought you might find it interesting to see how I'm planting up my peppers and how they're doing. A little bit of an update. I can take you in the greenhouse and show you the rest, because some of you saw me plant these peppers several months ago, and I thought you might like to see how they're doing. Okay, so excuse some of the mess here because I am slowly getting things put out and planted out in the yard, and like I said, I've been running out kind of between rainstorms or when I just have a few minutes here and there, and then the empty pots are just getting tossed in here for now. I'll clean them all up later and get them put away and organized. So, but I did go through yesterday and kind of organize what's going in the rest of those pots out there so that I knew when I want to come and just grab some peppers and get something done, I can just grab some quick, and I know which pot they're going in and how they're organized. So one of my pots is going to have the Antoi Romanian, which is this here, and you can see it's already started to put off some beautiful peppers as well. And I think some of these I only had a few of, so let me look. I think the Antoi Romanian, yeah, I just have one plant of that. I had planted, I think, at least 3 of each thing, but some of them just did not do well for me this year in the house. They were just too crowded. I had too many things planted. That's something I always tell you not to do. And it was just such a cold, unusually cold spring this year that things that I thought I'd be able to be moving some of my things out to my greenhouse sooner, and took that bet this year, and then I wasn't able to because of our crazy cool spring. So the peppers wound up getting crowded. They would have stayed in the house, but I thought other things would move out so I could spread them out more. But anyway, so here's the, this is the Matchbox chili peppers. So this is a new one for me this year, and they already have a few little chilies on them and lots of flowers. So they really want to get planted out and get going. And you'll see some of my pepper stems are split. Now some, just got pinched. A few I think I did pinch on purpose, and then I decided, oh, I'm not going to bother pinching them because I'm going to be putting them in these pots. They have lots of room to grow tall. I'll be able to trellis them really tall. And that to me is really the only really big advantage of pinching, is it makes a shorter, bushier tomato plant. So if you aren't able to trellis them, or they're in a really exposed area that you can't trellis them very well and protect them from blowing and breaking off in the wind, then you want to pinch them to get a bushier, a shorter plant. That way they'll still produce lots of peppers. They'll put lots of offshoots at each of these little like nodes or areas between the side shoot and the main stem. You'll get more shooting off the sides if you pinch them, but it won't, I don't think it really affects how much fruit you get. This way they're just going to go taller and produce more fruit as the stem goes up. These will stay shorter and produce more on the sides. The only thing is, maybe in a short season like I have, maybe you get a few more just because you have more side branches producing more fruit, maybe in a shorter amount of time than the time it takes to grow tall. But I find they grow pretty tall on their own anyways, pretty quickly. So that's my little thought on pinch or not to pinch. And a lot of times pepper plants will just branch on their own. So you can see this one definitely is a branch that it did on its own. There's no sign of pinching. This one I'm not sure, but it may have been pinched in there. Anyways, that's the Matchbox chili. And then I think the rest are all early prolific. Oh no, there's 2 candy canes. So here's I should have known if I looked at them. Here's the early prolific. So this is just a kind of a smaller early kind of bell pepper. It's starting to flower, and I have one that has a couple small peppers on it. I don't know if you can see them there. And then the candy cane, I have two pots of candy cane peppers, and you can see they're really fun. They're sweet pepper, one growing on there, and they get this kind of mottling on the leaves. I think you can see that there. And that's not like disease or anything. They're supposed to look like that. And the peppers themselves, actually, it's hard to tell when they're green, but they get some striping and variegation on the fruit as well. So those are kind of just a really yummy pepper, but they're just kind of fun to have in the garden as well. Then I have mini bell peppers. So I have a couple pots of those. They're starting to get some fruit on them. And some California Wonder. I think these are both, oh wait, no, this is California Wonder. It has actually 2 plants, but one's really small in there. I'm not sure why it was so far behind. And then this is a sweet banana pepper. A couple plants. This one's not looking too healthy. I think it was in the middle there, not getting a lot of sun and air circulation, because I had all these peppers jammed into, I think, 2 trays, including the plants that are already planted out. So now they're spread out a bit more. They're getting more light and air movement. And then these are both sweet lipstick peppers. Another nice, just sweet pepper. A little bit different shape and really, really sweet. These are sweet, yeah, these are both sweet sunrise. They have some peppers coming on there. I think you can see that. There's another one in the back. This is new to me this year, but I think this is just a kind of a round, like a bell pepper kind of pepper. I'd have to look back. I'll link my video where I go through all the varieties of peppers so you can see if you want to know more details about these peppers, but that's a new one for me this year. And then Pathfinder is also new. And I think this is a longer stuffing pepper, is it? Oh, I can't remember. This one had the wrong information on the package, and it's just gotten me really confused about what I ordered, and I keep forgetting now. I'll try and put on the screen here just a basic description maybe, because I just keep forgetting. But again, I'll link that video if you want to know just a little bit more details about each of these varieties that I have here. So that's the peppers that I'm planting. Along with the Sweet Sunrise and the Pathfinder, I'm going to be putting, I have a couple of eggplant in here. There's, oh, I thought I had aphids, but it's just dirt. So there's some eggplant, there's also some basil that'll just go elsewhere. Might go in the bottom of these pots, I'm not sure yet. But the eggplant will go with the Sweet Sunrise and the Pathfinder. And then I'm going to make one of those tall pots my cherry tomatoes. So they're getting really lanky. They needed to go forever ago. But they're Sun Gold, Cheese Mans, which is right here. It's a smaller one, I think. I have a couple of the Cheese Mans. This I think is another Sun Gold. It's wrapped around the rest. Yep, another Sun Gold. This little guy is called Elfin. I think that's all it is yet. And then I have a couple of Super Sweet 100. And you just see, they're just so lanky. Those tomatoes need to get planted. Again, they're just packed too tight in the trays in the house for too long without getting enough room for air circulation and light. And that's just one of the side effects of just having so many plants started and not being able to get them out early enough this spring to get some of the plants out of there to spread out the plants I was growing. But when you live in a cold climate with a short season like I do, that's just a risk you have to take sometimes just to try and get things going. But yeah, that's the peppers mostly that I wanted to focus on today that I'm planting, and then a couple other things that are going to go into those same pots planted in that same manner. Okay, so I managed to get all the pots planted up over the last day or so here, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of a look at them all potted up, and we'll have a little talk about why I was just taking them, because you probably saw most of them were in the greenhouse, and I was saying that I was just taking them out to plant them as I could. So we'll talk about a little bit about why I felt it was safe to do that and not have them out hardening them off first. So let's have a look and have a little chat. There they are, all potted up. Still a little bit of cleaning up to do with that fabric pot, but there's some radishes in there growing, so I'm just kind of letting them finish up and then I'll get that cleaned up. Garden helpers out here checking things out. So then when we turn, here's the pots on the other side here. So looking pretty good. I have the strings on the trellises. Everything's planted up. This one obviously is the tomatoes and the peppers. And there's eggplant over there and on the far side there. So everything's done. So as gardeners, we're always talking about the importance of hardening our plants off when we grow them indoors before we put them outside. And growing them in the greenhouse is the same thing. The greenhouse, even though it has the glass windows or a plastic frame around it, it still doesn't transmit the same UV light as being outside does. And the same thing is, I have a fan going in my greenhouse, but it's not the same as having the wind blowing on the plants. So plants should be hardened off when they come out of a greenhouse or out of your home or whatnot before you plant them outside. Now the reason I'm feeling pretty confident in planting these plants out at this point without doing a lot of hardening off is, A, they have been in and out a little bit over the last month or so. I've had them out for a little bit here and there, and it's not been consistent. It's not been the proper hardening off procedure, but it has strengthened up the stems on most of these plants, and given them some exposure to some of that harsh UV light and wind and things. That's not really enough, but these are very mature plants. They have a good system going for them already, so they're good, strong plants, and even if they do suffer a little bit of a setback, I know they'll be able to come back from that. It won't kill them off completely. And it's been, like I said, fairly overcast and drizzly. It hasn't been cold, it hasn't been hot, it's just been really mild, usually around like 10 to 12 Celsius at night, and then even when it's getting up to like 20 or 25 during the day, it's not intense heat because we've had such heavy cloud cover. We haven't actually had a lot of actual rain, but we've had lots of drizzle, and it hasn't been super windy, which is part of what's keeping the system over top of us. So I've just been slowly planting them out and seeing how the weather affects them, and it hasn't seemed to be bothering them. They're not getting burnt from the sun. They're not getting beat around because it's not super windy out. And that was my plan for these and why I wanted to get them planted out now. Now today, as I was finishing up planting, the sun came out pretty intense, and I was like, oh, that wasn't the plan. So if these clouds that have come back over the sun decide to not stick around, I may have to get some like newspaper or even just some mesh netting or something just to kind of wrap around the outside loosely, just to give them a little bit of protection from the sun, or put up an umbrella or something. Even hang a box over the top of the trellis would probably offer enough shade to help them out so they're not getting scorched by the sun. If the wind comes up, same thing, like wrap some netting or burlap or something around the outside just to kind of buffer that wind a little bit. And that's what I'll be doing. But usually with a pretty mature plant like this, if you pick the right conditions to put them out, you can be pretty safe doing so, but you do have to pay attention to what's going on just in case, right? Hopefully you found it interesting to see how I'm planting out my peppers this year and a few of my tomatoes and eggplants, and maybe you even found a few ideas to apply to your own garden. If you did, I'd love to hear about it in the comments down below, or if you have tips for other gardeners or want to share what you're growing this year, put it down in the comments. I always read the comments and I love to hear from others. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.